Hey guys, today I'm going to walk you through hybrid teaching synchronously. So, zooming and projecting to students directly in front of you, and then for students at home. That's going to be using the products today will be Zoom. I'm a part of an Apple school, so I'll have a MacBook Air and then an iPad that we can AirPlay from. And I'll show you kind of what I would do if I were you. There's so many options when you have two devices, and you're like, we're very fortunate at the school I work at to have those, but it's also possible with one. So I'll kind of walk you through all of those. So I'm in the Zoom desktop app on my MacBook Air. You can get it if you're not on a Mac as well. And I'm going to suggest that everyone schedules their meetings in advance so they'll show up and you'll be able to just click and launch for the day of class. So I'm going to launch a Zoom meeting and we'll go over some of those preferences that you could set to make sure that your class starts on the right foot. So you could select a scheduled meeting. I'm going to launch a new meeting, just pretending that this is kind of what I'm accessing. Um, Things to consider when you launch a new Zoom meeting or a scheduled one. You're going to be admitting participants through a waiting room, okay? So that might be, something that you're going to want to sit close to the front of your room if you're monitoring your Zoom meeting from this device. So let's say these are my student desks, okay? And I'm going to be in this space, ready at the front of my room to project. So when the meeting's launched, you can see you get all of the settings on the bottom to share your screen, chat with students, check your participants to mute, and do all of that stuff. But what I'm going to do is share my screen because I imagine if it's the start of class, I'm going to want to show students something at home so that they have something to do while I take attendance and greet students. I might even mute myself for this part and just put text on the screen. So I'll show you what that looks like. Share your screen, you get all of these options for Windows. So the whiteboard would just be putting a whiteboard up in front of your students. You could pick individual screens to choose to share. So I'm going to pick either whiteboard or like a sticky note and post that for my students for them to see from home. It's also what I'm going to AirPlay to my students as well. Here I am monitoring my Zoom on my laptop in front of my students, letting students in, maybe taking attendance, okay? If I have content that I need to project, for example, I'm doing a bell ringer or an activity at the beginning of class, I would AirPlay the same way that I typically would. Here's the difference. Whatever is on my screen is going to be projected up on this. So for the purpose of this video, I've been trying to keep it concise, but I just want to say that the only way students in front of you are seeing that screen up on the board of other students entering the Zoom, maybe even chatting with you via message, is if you're AirPlaying it. So if you choose not to project the screen that you're managing your Zoom from, you're all good. You could use a secondary device to show the kids in front of you content. So we have, like I said, two devices. So you could take your iPad and you could AirPlay your presentation from there all class and just kind of go through on both devices. You'd be clicking on both devices to navigate through a slideshow. Or you could use two desktops if you're familiar with that on a Mac. I can explain it to you what that means, but if you're familiar with it, that's a really easy way to navigate around what students directly in front of you see. You would really only project and AirPlay from one desktop, Zoom from a second. Or you could just let it happen and kind of use that as a lesson and a message with your kids, like you're being held accountable. Students in front of you, you're seeing each other and you need to behave and not send something inappropriate into the chat box. If you need to have a private conversation with me, please let me know and I'll on AirPlay. I think that's a reasonable way to go about it too. So those are just your options that I'm trying to make you think about when we see this like in front of us. Okay, but this is a lot of options, but you really could join as a guest on your other device, and that would allow you to AirPlay from one as the attendee and then project as the host. But that's for another video and session. So that brings me to we're starting class, okay? So this is the question of what happens at the beginning of class when I'm launching a Zoom, taking attendance, and talking to students at the same time. So things you can do. One of the things that I've suggested is sharing a screen that has a question of the day on it, or in this case, like I just made a sticky note and I click share screen and I'm just going to share that with my students. So that might look like this. So I see this is what they're seeing in the corner of my screen. But let's say I join this meeting over on the other device. Fun fact, I joined this meeting as a student, so when my screen is sharing, even though on the teacher's screen up here, okay, it kind of looks like chaos, or on my laptop it looks like I have a lot of windows showing, I'm only showing them that sticky note, okay? Okay, so if I've been sharing this sticky note all along and I now want to present this slideshow that I pulled up in Google Slides to the entire class, and I'm going to AirPlay it, here's what I do. So I haven't been AirPlayed and I want to make that change. So I'm going to stop sharing. So I'm going to click on the little red part and I'm going to get this window of my face again. Okay, I'm going to go back to share screen, and then this time I'm going to choose my slideshow window. I'm choosing this instead of desktop because this is all I really want students to see. I have a lot going on with a lot of windows. So just like the sticky note, this will be what they see only, okay? So when I share that presentation, my students at home will see this. I'm gonna wanna play this and AirPlay it in front of my class anyway. So I'm going to make sure that I AirPlay onto the TV up front. That way students can see everything, if that makes sense. So what's here is now what's there, okay? Ignore the little menu on that. So here's what I get. Here's a slideshow with my floating face in the corner, and then this is what the students will see up on the whiteboard here. Okay, as a student logged in at home, here's what they'll see. This is the student view. Once again, I have them in split screen so they can take notes if they want. They can adjust their audio and video like typical, and they can still use the chat if they would like to message me or everyone. They can say something. Okay, so now for class today, I'm going to work off this slideshow. This is what students at home see. This is what students in my course see. And then here is where I'm running it all. So I'm sharing the screen on my laptop and I'm presenting from there, okay? My students' faces at home, if I had more than just myself right now, would all show up here stacked. So like here's both of me, and then I would be able to go through and mute them if I needed to, or prompt them to make sure they're paying attention. If you have rules about who shows their camera and all that stuff, you'll be able to also direct them from there. So as I click through my slideshow, I'll be able to go right through it. When I'm done and class is over for the day, I might stop my sharing by going to that red stop share button. And then I'll be back in the regular Zoom screen where I can see my gallery view of participants. And that gives me a good sense of kind of where Zoom is at for the day. They're still hearing what's happening. Then if I opened it up, let's say to a class discussion, and I wanted to speak to other students around in the classroom, I would maybe position this device so that it could see the students from the front of the room. I might turn it around so that they could see the other participants, and then go back and end class by ending my Zoom meeting and making sure that no one has any questions before I go. Okay, and I would say end meeting for all. Okay, so refreshing this scenario, here's what's happening. I am in front of my classroom. I'm stuck up here due to 6 feet distancing, social distancing anyway. I'm managing my online students, and then I'm also managing the students that are in my room at the same time. I'm operating Zoom only from one device, my laptop, okay? That being said, I am answering questions on my laptop, I'm running a Zoom, and I'm presenting content all on one device. That's what I did in this session. The only time I used my iPad was to model what a student sees on their iPad at home. You may be wondering how to write on a whiteboard or utilize your iPad in these scenarios, and this video didn't address that, but another one will later. This mostly just discussed the logistics of laptop sharing with students who are in person and at home synchronously hybrid.